Hi there, I'm John Maida. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the special viewing of the CX report. Just presented it at South by Southwest. This is a condensed version of it, and I'm making it because today is my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. She is 26 years old. Wink, you get it? My mom really is the person who set forth in her life to believe in me, and she didn't have to, but moms do that sometimes, and I was super lucky. So thank you, Mom, for watching all my YouTube videos and being so encouraging. This one's for you. All right. So this is the CX Report 2021 edition, where I double-click deeply into the safety world. We're going to talk about the safety stack. We're going to talk about the technology world and the safety world. That's safety stack, and discover that a lot's changing, and it's a great time, if you're interested, in this whole space of feeling safer to get more things done. Because what's the point of being safe if you can't get things done, right? It's a combination of taking in risk to reap more reward. Let's go. Okay, so first of all, this year's cover was designed by Eriko Kawakami. Eriko is a Tokyo, Berlin-based designer. Check her work out. It's pretty amazing. By the way, this is being done in work-from-home mode. I have a little bit of light left. I just saw a turkey walk by in my front yard. Whoa, 8 turkeys. Pretty cool, New England. And this report is going to be an all-in-one cut, so apologies if it isn't perfect. Here we go. So first of all, design and tech reports, they happened. If you are aware, I began thinking about the intersection of design, technology, and business when I was lucky to be in the venture capital world in Silicon Valley. Learned a ton. Kept on learning. Began realizing that, what does the word design mean? Not sure, because it's used in so many ways. So laid out 3 ways to think of design: classical design, design thinking, and computational design. Kept going. Realizing that because of computational design and its impact globally, at scale, we're talking billions, and exponential speed, we're talking fast, it was creating a world that we're not sure if it's okay or not. A much less inclusive world. Technology products were working well for one group and not working for a lot of others who may not have been like that group, if you know what I mean. And then began looking more globally, thinking about how the Silicon Valley phenomenon was not limited to Silicon Valley. China was taking an incredible leadership in the UX space. AI in particular was changing how things were getting done there, and we're going to integrate that viewpoint as well. And then around 2019, I realized when I said the word computation, people made kind of a funny face, so began thinking, how to make that clearer? Computation, humanity, design, technology. So I was lucky to commission a few pieces every year now from Tony Ruth, designer and illustrator. He was able to kind of put that you get to see. Pretty exciting stuff. All right, 2020. Digital transformation popped into the foreground because it was really important. Why? Well, we've been saying technology is going to change everything, but wasn't changing that quickly. But products were changing. How we experiencing them was changing because there was technology inside them, that big red dot there. It's like, wow, it's connected to the internet. Oh, it was made with computer-based rapid fabrication tools, or, like what is this stuff? It's everywhere. This incredible technology, computation, everywhere. And so I wrote a book called How to Speak Machine. It took me 6 years. It basically lays out from a David Bowie interview from BBC about how he said that the internet was as if an alien had landed on Earth. This is 1999. He got it right. Bowie, alien? Unsure, but anyways. So it's 6 short chapters. It lays out for any business person in particular how computation works. How does the cloud work? How does machine learning work? You're not going to be able to work as a developer at Google after you read this book, but it'll give you a primer to be slightly concerned, but also kind of curious about what may come. When we say the word digital transformation, it has trended over time. It means many things, but it means actually two simple things. What it means is either you're trying to take a paper-based process and make it digital, achieving efficiencies, digitization, or you're standing up an entirely new digital business model, digitalization. This framing of these two words sounds kind of complicated because they sound the same, because a dictionary says they are the same. But in the world of digital transformation, it's useful to distinguish between digitizing and digitalizing. You see, even I get it wrong too. So how do you do that? Well, there's terrific digital transformation frameworks out there. There's probably as many frameworks for design thinking as there are digital transformation. But I like Jeannie Ross's framing of the 5 building blocks of digital transformation. And in last year's report, I highlighted how shared customer insights, aka data, always disappear, but it's the most critical part of a transformation effort. Last year's report laid out a Neo-style matrix hypothesis that you can either take the blue pill or the red pill. The blue pill means I'm pretty okay, I'll have my lunch, this computer stuff confuses me. To red pill, wow, I can see the singularity coming. How do I write my own APIs and play around with machine learning? So different personalities at play. I like it the old way, keep it that way, or I want to go fast. The red pill's about fast, and not just regular fast, exponentially fast. Why is it hard for a large organization to move exponentially fast in this digital transformation age? It's because the technology has accrued over many years, many people who came and left, and they left different software systems in a cloud or on-prem or literally under someone's desk, and they're running. And if you come in and you want to transform it, good luck, because you're changing how work gets done. I don't think anyone likes when you change anything. So if you're trying to change how work gets done, you're going to get in trouble. So digital transformation was kind of a boon because people kept asking, when will the C-suite, who in the C-suite will lead digital transformation? And there was this cartoon going out, comic going out, about how there's one member of the C-suite that was making the biggest difference in digital transformation. Not the CEO, the CIO, the CTO, the C, anything O. It was the COVID-19. And that's the truth, right? We've all felt it. The world's so different now. People just say, Slack it to me. People say, I'll see you on Teams. Before, they would refuse to be there. But there's no choice right now. There's no choice. And in many senses, when COVID landed, we also felt disconnected. But I noticed that the Earth was having a pretty good time because we weren't doing stuff to it. And so last year's report I called Sponsored by the Earth. And these are 3 illustrations by Tony that kind of nailed that moment. We're going to watch these with no music or voiceover. Just check out the art. Hope you enjoyed that. The illustrations for this year are pretty deep, slightly dark, but also insightful. That's how Tony Ruth rides. Last year's report focused on remote work, distributed work. I want to thank Wendy Johansson, who was critical in that report's appendix creation. We're both fans of distributed work, and it was kind of awesome. And the appendix talked about how I learned by working at the coolest all-distributed tech company at the time, at scale, Automatic, about everything distributed. And the founder CEO of Automatic would always say that remote work is not the same as distributed work. At first, I didn't quite get it, but I think everyone gets that right now, right? Because work from home, remote work means you're working away from a place called work, whereas distributed work means working together somehow. You're collaborating. That's pretty hard if you haven't noticed during COVID-19. If you're lucky to stay home, of course, and work. So there are different modes that happen in work. You can work all the way from synchronous to asynchronous, and anyone who gets started working all remote has a pretty hard time working asynchronous. I had a pretty hard time my first year at Automatic, maybe even my second year. Sorry, Automatic people, but learned very quickly how asynchronous is the way. It means not having to call a meeting for everything. Do you know what I mean? And also there's different levels of satisfaction when you work remotely. Inevitably, you have to bring people together. It's more than just cooperating, it's collaborating. So you have to have good feels. So I remember at Automatic when we had this all-distributed, all-remote holiday party, I remembered people like making fun of it on Twitter, but just want to say that a lot of people are doing this now. So it was a way to kind of see the future, the remote future, a distributed future where computers can mediate so much stuff and work together. But it was all about people working together, which is quite hard. It's hard because the venue does matter. If you don't have a venue, it's hard to interconnect. My house is a bit noisy, I apologize. So anyways. So interconnecting isn't easy, and there's tons of research on what situations enable more collaboration to happen. Last year's report gathered a bunch of ideas, and hopefully it was useful to people out there. Available as a PDF. It basically shows you that without serendipity, it's hard to innovate. It's also hard to bring people together around a dangerous idea, like an interesting idea. So if anything, I think this era, we've become slightly conservative in how we think because of just not your fault. It's how we're organized now in kind of cells and cells and cells of people who are separated. And hopefully after the vaccine, we'll see a flip back to more collaboration and also with better tools. If anything, I learned at Automatic that there are all kinds of tools, and I'm sure you've discovered these kinds of tools yourselves, tools to isolate yourself. Tools to be able to structure your time as if it were rooms. Tools to actually be more mindful. So when you think about it, this era of remote work has made us in touch with not our body, but our minds. Our minds as places to be with other minds without no place. And this transformation journey has gotten even better with VR. I remember when I published the last year's report, the Oculus Quest came out, and I was amazed by the onboarding experience. I got a new one, incredible. So hanging out in VR is no longer strange anymore, and especially because of distributed era, this is going to be much more common. So if you haven't tried it out, if you're still kind of like holding back, you got to try it out. It's pretty amazing. Brings us to 2021, the Black Swan era. But I want to note that after looking at Black Swan stuff more carefully, like there are negative black swans and there are positive black swans. Like the World Wide Web was a black swan. We don't call it that. We call COVID the Black Swan. It sounds so dark and bad. But kind of wonder if that's just sort of bias built in. I mean, there was an FT article about, is it okay to say the word black swan? Well, it turns out that the author of this idea, Nassim Taleb, laid out how there are positive black swans and negative black swans. So I like to think that right now for me, I keep asking myself, oh, that was a negative black swan. Be specific. What's a positive black swan? Not to be Pollyanna, but to be awake and aware that technology is disrupting everything at two speeds: long-term change and fast and quick change. But the long-term change happened over a long period, but it lands like an avalanche. And just being aware of time scale is so key for me right now. I don't know about you, but in this era of the pandemic, I've been thinking a lot about like a lot of stuff, right? Spend a lot less time online. It's too much noise. And hearing yourself is pretty hard, but a good place. And that's why I asked Tony Ruth to do his take on these three acronyms that are so popular. WFH, work from home, return to work, R2W, and I like to call it WFW, work from work. That was the normal way. And so Tony's created three illustrations that lay this out for us. And so let's check those out. Again, in silence. Hope you enjoyed that. Made you think, right? Tony Ruth's work always makes me think. So I've been thinking a lot about the space of critical events, when things happen, bad things that are unexpected. And remember, there are good critical events too. Didn't expect that. That was kind of awesome. When you experience anything bad, it's pretty powerful. I experienced, as president of a university, a vote of no confidence that was super public. And I remember having this book on the side of my desk. It was called Crisis Management. I never heard of this field, but I began to study it a lot, read about it. Like, wow, what is this stuff? And it really helped me get through that event. It wasn't easy. It was a reputational event, a career event that was negative. You can also have physical critical events, events that you wish didn't happen. Like I was jogging early morning in Silicon Valley when it was pitch dark, bad idea, and the sidewalk plates aren't aligned, and I tripped over the edge between two of them, and I took a tumble. I went pretty hard. I flew in the air. I broke my face, broke my shoulder, my elbow, and it was like game over, bleeding, etc. Laying there all by myself, and it was like, this is very humbling. And these physical events are super hard on your body, but they also hurt your mind as well. I can still remember in slow motion, just like falling and thinking, don't want that to happen. But it's made me a student of resilience. This is a curve by Kubler-Ross. It's a curve that you use to understand what happens when change hits you, change you weren't expecting. And so on the left-hand side of the graph, you're like, it happened. Was that good? Was that bad? I don't know. I don't like this. And so how you recover is a function of your ability to bounce back. Some people can be all yes, we can all the time, super resilient. Some people can't. It seems to be a learned skill, resilience. And it does come from the school of hard knocks. But if anything, it's made me conscious of how, if we understand resilience, we can go through life better. If you're a business that's resilient, you can manage bad stuff. And if you're able to manage critical events that are positive, you can take advantage of them as well. Now, why is it though that we always think of something risky or something like surprising as negative? It's because this is the emotion wheel from Dr. Paul Ekman. And I find it interesting how 5 of the 6 emotions are negative and only 1 is positive, enjoyment. And I think of my mom and how resilient she is. And I think it's because she's so happy all the time. But she shouldn't be happy. There's a lot of bad stuff that's happened in her life, so much hardship. But she's resilient. She is able to find that enjoyment place in difficulty. I think I've learned a little bit from watching her example. Hey, Mom, this video is for you, just so you're aware. Keep going. All right. So there's also this great scale by Dr. Amy Edmondson's, and it's about how failure can be either bad failure on the left-hand side or positive failure. Check the scale out. It's pretty interesting. Basically, we'll tell you that we like to think of that sort of fail fast Silicon Valley stuff. That's on the right-hand side. That's experimenting to discover. When you feel like, oh, you should feel miserable, you deserve it, it's on the left-hand side. So failure is a complex word. Some good failure and some bad failure. Now, when you think of the global supply chain and the impact that COVID-19 had, we know it failed, but why did it fail? It failed because the global supply chain, illustrated on the left, was amazingly efficient. It had no inventory. You could source from cheaper pockets around the world, low cost of logistics. It was the best thing ever, but because it was so hyper efficient, it was easy for it to crumble apart if hit by something hard. Contrast that with the supply chain on the right-hand side. It's having local suppliers who might be more expensive, and even backup suppliers, and holding inventory. Like, what's that about? That's expensive, yet it's more resilient as well. So how do we kind of think of this age of resilience as actually a different kind of take? I think that the work of Roger L. Martin, his new book on efficiency as something question mark, is a great read because it touches upon this very topic. The fact that resilience is different from being efficient, but it's actually the most efficient way to get through a difficult situation. A little paradox, huh? I like that one. So when we think about risk and who's watching the world risk, that's the World Economic Forum. If you look at all their risk reports, just type in risk report and a year number, and all the past reports will come up. The 2021 report puts pandemics at the top. But if you look at all past years, there is no pandemic reference. But if you go back to 2007 or so, you'll see pandemics at the top 3. I want to note that in 2006, there was this great issue of HBR that talks about the avian flu, and the impact on the world at the time was written up by several experts and asking what would happen, and it's super spot on. Like, read this. Should a pandemic emerge, it would become the single greatest threat to business continuity and could remain so for up to 18 months. Sound familiar? Anyways, it goes on. Different articles are in there, so check it out. It's quite disturbing, but quite good feeling knowing that people thought about this. We just forgot about how to prepare. It's because oftentimes when something happens, a critical event occurs, it happens, it unfolds, it's big, and if you get to the gray zone, you're like, made it, hopefully, finally. Is it gone? And we forget. And when we forget, we become less prepared. So the question is, how can technologies help us repeatedly learn from difficult situations, recover faster, and then ultimately take advantage of them to our benefit? That's the whole space of critical event management. It's a cool space. So if you think about it, it boils down to what Louis Pasteur said, luck favors the prepared. It's good to be lucky. To be lucky, you have to be prepared. Also, Edna Mode is quoted as saying it too, but I think Pasteur sort of did that first, but let's give it to Mode because she's awesome. All right. So supply chain disruption for vaccine management, distribution, hard problem. If you look at my LinkedIn feed, I can share some content about a video I made to explain how hard it is to distribute a vaccine with cold storage. Super hard. And I'm proud to be at Abridged. We have supported through our technologies the ability to manage distribution of vaccine. And it is not an easy thing. And it's made me think about how the safety stack is not just technology, it's people working to save other people's lives. It's a noteworthy and noble part of the tech stack. So when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and last year's report talking about the marketing and the product cycles moving super quickly, the tech stacks of marketing, Like they're always targeting us, finding us like a robot. And the product tech stack is slightly slower. It's getting better. That's called agile? Huh? Wink. And the reality, though, is that the Maslow's hierarchy of need base is important. That's that safety thing. So you can't shop, you can't use cool products if you don't have safety. So the safety stack is a super interesting space. I'm working with Julie Finkelstein. She is Everbridge's Director of Experience Strategy. And we've been working out, sort of playing mind tennis to map out what is the safety stack? How does it work? And you'll see more of this kind of thinking out of Everbridge's future publications, but I hope you enjoy it. The safety stack is not only a cool place, it's a meaningful place. And I think in tech today, we're looking for meaningful work and a lot of meaning in the safety stack. Check it out. It's because when bad things happen, and they happen to just things, super important for business continuity, when they happen to people, the whole game changes. Like when the critical event happens to people, it literally hurts, it literally harms. And no matter how good your technology or processes are, you can wipe away some of those bad things. But if even 10% hasn't been addressed, or even 5% haven't addressed, it involves, say, a child, it's just as bad as if you were at 100% badness, because every person counts in the world of the safety stack. So important if you're curious about this space. So when you think about it, technology always creates these situations where society has to change. Think about how cars in the mid-1900s, people stopped buying them. And so what happened is GM appointed the first Johnny Ive of design, essentially, to add chrome, make the desirability of the car increase, make it much more of a consumer purchase that you might want to think about buying another one. And cars took off not just because of design, they took off because of a more significant phenomenon, which is the President Eisenhower in the United States launched the Interstate Highway System, a public works project, therefore making it possible for families to drive long distances. And so it was a combination of more runway and more desirable technology that actually felt better to use. And when you think about it, if it's really good and you like it, everyone starts buying it, bad things can happen with technologies. The number of traffic deaths increased, but over time it decreased. How's that possible? It's because we made technology to save lives. When you think of, for instance, the Tesla automobile, if you look at all the data off of their investor site, it lays out how, because of self-driving capability in a Tesla, it's safer than a human driving the car. This kind of safety is called active safety versus passive safety. Passive safety is like putting on a seatbelt, whereas active safety is having computation control systems around you to make you safer. Say like you're driving fast and about to hit something, the brakes come on automatically. Say you're driving outside your lane, the car corrects its position. And so this is active safety. So active safety happens because of the safety stack. Now, when you think about it, the automobile is kind of like the first computer or the first smartphone, a major technology deployed at scale. And we're experiencing the new car of the mind. I guess Steve Jobs called it the bicycle for the mind, but I think a smartphone's faster than a bicycle, so maybe it's like a Maserati for the mind. And in many senses, a lot of users are now on board to computers. Remember in the 70s, nobody used a computer. In the 80s, people barely used a computer. People made fun of you for using a computer in the past. I guess kind of like the same with automobiles. People made fun of people who drove in cars. That's never going to catch on. I got my horse. But the world changed. The world changed because of the smartphone. We accelerated usage, and using computers became something we do almost every second of the day, especially now in this pandemic era. And the internet is a very dangerous place. I was someone suggested to me to make an avatar of a woman and go online with a woman's name and discover what it's like to be on social media. It is not a fun place. It changed my perspective on everything. it made me think about inclusive design. Tracy Chow is out there with an incredible company that is trying to make things safer. When you make things safer for certain users who don't feel safe, the internet becomes a better place. So supporting these kinds of technologies are key. And there's all kind of great books out now that talk about how to make the internet technologies more inclusive. I urge you to read them if you haven't checked them out. But I know all of these authors, all of these startup founders who are in this space have really taught me so much that I was not aware of. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing more of this work and trying to highlight it in my reports. Now, when you think about it, it's hard to kind of think differently than yourself. It turns out there's all kind of pieces out there. This is from The Atlantic, and it's a terrific piece about how we like to copy what other people do. So if we're around bad people, we're going to copy what they do because we got to fit in. There's this book called I'll Have What She's Having. I wrote the foreword for it a long time ago. Similar topic. We've survived because we copy others, because it's the fastest way to do the right thing. But you got to remember that it's easy to do the wrong thing as well. So, 2 slides left. Here we go. So if you want to stay in touch with different way of thinking, you got to follow Paola Antonelli's work. She has predicted I'm getting like chills thinking of her. She's predicted every possible trend 6 or 7 years ahead of anyone else. These ideas on safety, I think she had 2 exhibitions around it. Anything around technology and design, she was like a decade ahead of everyone else. So check out the work of Paola Antonelli. She's at Curious Octopus. She may be slightly embarrassed by me mentioning this, but Paola is awesome. Okay, so key moral of this story. I love the Christopher Nolan rendition of when young Master Bruce Wayne falls into the well and sees the bats for the first time. And his father rescues him. And there's a line where it says, "Why do we fail, Bruce? So we can learn to pick ourselves up again." Whenever I fail, I always watch that clip on YouTube and picks me up. We do it to learn because unavoidable bad things can happen. Sometimes you can be prepared. And don't forget, sometimes unavoidable thing can happen and it's kind of good. You learn something important. So I remember when I had a difficult time running a university, I learned so much. I remember when I fell and broke my elbow and face, and it was like, wow, that was amazing. I learned so much. So if anything, I do my best to remain resilient by finding that place of, I guess, gratitude. Not easy for everyone to know. I have a certain privilege that allows me to do that, and I recognize that, and I'm grateful for that as well. So this thought I want to leave you with, it is a visual definition of anti-fragile. When I found this word, I didn't understand it, and so I made diagrams for the last, couple of years, and this is my final attempt. Here we go. Fragile means you hit something, and the impact is concave. It buckled. Robust means you hit it and doesn't even budge. Resilient means you hit it, buckled, but it comes back. And that's a weird thing. Whoa, came back. And anti-fragile is the opposite of fragile. So what's the opposite of concave? It's convex. So you hit it, and it gets stronger, gets bolder. It's like even more than resilient. What is that? Well, that's what we're trying to figure out at Abridged with critical event management. The future is anti-fragile, definitely. If this all didn't make much sense, I'm going to show you one more thing that doesn't make any sense because it's about not making sense. It's a chart I gathered from many sources on the internet to lay out unknown unknowns, which is a word I knew became super popular post 9/11. And it comes up in there's like a movie title around it. But what is an unknown unknown? What's an unknown known? What's a known unknown? It's all there. And what it means is that sometimes something happens to you. Ask yourself, which quadrant are you in? Because you're trying to move out of one quadrant to the other. Like say your boss told you to do something. I don't have much information, but I know the problem. And so you're going to move out of that quadrant. Or you're a startup and you know exactly all your customers and you know how to get product market fit. And you go after it and you discover, I didn't know something. Or I do know something. So this is kind of a useful compass. When you wake up in the morning, something happens. Which quadrant are you in? Which one do you want to head to? That will help you manage through a critical event. Personally, it'll help you feel safer, but also might embolden you to do more. And that's it. Thanks for listening in. I made some light edits along the way, but this was all one cut. Again, happy birthday, Mom. And thank you all for visiting this special version of the 2021 CX Report. Bye.